Well, let's dive into the drone situation. I'm somewhat confused, as is most of America, when you've got drones flying over sensitive and classified sites. Why we just let it happen, and then we say, well, we don't know what their intent is. Well, yeah, of course we don't, because we're not doing anything to stop it, it seems. Am I wrong?
Well, Mike, I actually happen to have worked this issue for a number of years. I read press releases very closely because I've done a number of press releases in my career, and you have to read every single word because there's so much legal nuance built into those press releases. And also on metrics, 3 data points mean a trend line. We now have 3 data points. Hampton Roads, Newport News, Virginia Beach in December of 23. Earlier in November, Picatinny Arsenal up in New Jersey. Now we have the UK bases. Now, in the press release, what got my attention was they used the term that the drones flew over the 3 UK facilities, which I think was Mildenhall. I think it was Lakenheath, Mildenhall, and one other. Okay, they flew.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right, Feltwell, which is a kind of a logistics base. I'm not sure that even has a runway, but they flew over the fence line. This is extremely important because in New Jersey and then the 17 nights in December 23, I don't believe they actually ever crossed a DOD or a U.S. government fence line. Very important, especially in the American airspace environment, because it's all about roles and missions between the different departments and agencies. And what I worry about, I believe this was a state actor, is China is not just ripping off our classified stuff. They actually read our laws, policies, and regulations closer than we do and analyze them better than we do. Now, the running joke on the inside was, well, if they do that, we'll just rip it off through our signals intelligence, and then we'll read it and we'll understand it too once they do their analysis. But they understand the gaps and seam lines and who's doing what in the domestic airspace. In the UK, they said they actually flew over the facilities. Not apparently. Now, in the Virginia Beach area, you got a U.S. government facility you may be familiar with way in the upper left. And then you have Cheatham Annex, then you have Yorktown Naval Weapons Station, then you got Langley, you got Fort, you go all the way down to Dam Neck Annex, where we have a very sensitive special operations facility. I don't believe they flew for 17 days. I don't believe they actually flew over a DOD or U.S. government facility, but they were testing us.
Right. But now, I mean, people look at that, right, and they say, well, why aren't we shooting them down? And the typical answer, at least in the U.S., is, well, it's out of concern over civilian, security and safety. Are there protocols currently in place, or are we just playing catch-up? But are there protocols in place that you know of that allow for a shoot-down of unauthorized, whether it's a drone or anything else, on a classified or secure facility?
Well, without revealing classified information, there is a smattering of facilities that have approvals to engage through various methods. Okay, and I'll just leave it at that. It can't be a smattering. It has to be pervasive. So there are a handful. Now there's 4, and I think it was the Congressional Research Service did a great piece. Look up CRS's report on domestic airspace and countering drones. There's 4 U.S. government agencies, departments and agencies that have authority. First is Department of Energy, but it's at very specific locations like the Nevada test site. Okay, then you have the Department of Defense, which has mature procedures and capabilities at a very small number of facilities, okay? And I'm not going to say which ones. Then you have Department of Justice / DHS that have legal authorities over special situations, such as the airspace over the White House, which is actually the one airspace sector that is not managed by the FAA, but managed by Secret Service, obviously. But you have national sensitive security events, which are declared, such as the State of the Union, the Super Bowl, and that's where FBI, that has a very robust counter drone. But again, they have to be. It just, we don't have a pervasive agreed upon, and this is the domestic airspace. This is not a forward operating base in Iraq or Syria where we set up the Centurion system, which is the Army version of the Navy Gatling gun. That thing works. Awesome. You know,
I've got one at home. Yeah, I've got my very own at home. Yeah, it's fantastic. For home defense, couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, I mean, it works great,
Sorry.
but firing 20 millimeter rounds over desert space to zap an incoming mortar round, or a small drone or a big drone, no problem. Firing a stream of 20 millimeter rounds over residential area, that's a really bad idea. Okay, that is not going to end well. So we have to develop a protocol for alerting, and not just the government agencies responsible, but also the local civilian population. We might have to bring back the old air raid sirens that used to go off at 12 o'clock noon Wednesday during the Cold War. We might have to bring those back. All those things have been. I actually got an old one in the workshop over here. Those sirens.
Yeah, look, I'm old enough to remember those air raid siren drills, and also duck and cover under your school desk. And I remember one of my buddies, as we were sitting under our school desks, I think it was, I forget what year I was in, looking at me and saying, "I don't think this is going to protect us." And I was like, "Well, you're obviously headed towards great things because you're a genius, son." But look, I think we do have the technology. I mean, my understanding is, and without going into gruesome sources and methods, but we do have the technology without firing off rounds to stop drones, and we have that ability. I guess the question keeps coming back to the same thing, which is, it just seems like Elvis has left the building on this issue, right? If we've got drones, and from what you're saying, you believe that they are state-sponsored, that at least when
Absolutely.
we're talking about Langley or Norfolk. So if that's the case, and they're engaged in, if we imagine they're engaged in surveillance, if they're engaged in intel collection, if they're engaged in just an effort to test what our reaction is, because that's also extremely important, to know what the other side is going to do in any given scenario, then the idea that we are not at the top of our game, and just because it's infuriating. If we have these incidents, and in the UK, days after, the officials are saying, well, we really don't know what the intention was. I'm left speechless. How does the U.S. military and our allies, how do we not have protocols in place, as you pointed out, that are not just sort of case by case or for certain facilities, to say, no, you can't do this, whether you're a hobbyist or whether you're the Chinese regime or anyone else?
Yeah, and this is industrial grade. These are not a bunch of hobby shoppers. General Kelly described what he saw. And again, they never crossed the fence line at Langley. And this is Langley Air Force Base, not Langley CIA headquarters.
Right.
There's some folks have been saying they've been flying over CIA headquarters. Wrong Langley. This is Langley Air Force Base.
Oh no! Trust me, John. If they flew over Langley headquarters, the CIA facility, we've already got protocol out there. What happens is all the interns run out and throw classified documents up in the air towards the drones. And that's our plan. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.